And they started using it for what they use it for, which is not a bad thing. It's not, but I just want people to know that it wasn't just where it came from. Mm-hmm. It came from former slaves, and they were in remembrance of the fallen black soldiers during the Civil War.
So then you have Independence Day, July 4th. Mm-hmm. So you have these moments where people have fought and died for our freedom, one way or another. Mm-hmm. And it's all about war. As you hear, it's all about war, right?
Correct.
And then in this situation right here in the middle, in the war, between these two acknowledgments of war, quote unquote, right in the middle, you have something where we're talking about freedom and just being able to live to some degree. And in that discussion of freedom and what's the mindset of where we are and or are not today, we acknowledge these two, these holidays more. I think we celebrate July 4th a lot more than we do Memorial Day, which is quite natural. But but for us to acknowledge Juneteenth should be for some of us should be a little bigger than what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah,
because again, we would not be where we are if it wasn't for that type of acknowledgement by Abraham Lincoln. Whether or not he was pressured or not, because there's a whole lot of conspiracy theories about that.
Right.
But at least there was a start. Now there are some things that we still can't do, such as, like, oh yeah, let's vote. You got to right to vote. You do, but you don't.
Right.
So
speaking of voting, real quick. During the time when the Emancipation Proclamation was presented, and Lincoln had asked them to free the slaves in Texas, the white Texas legislator responded by passing a restrictive black code in the year 1866, right? Drawn on the long-standing images of African Americans of insolent and prone to crime, stereotypes that flow directly out of the antebellum of the pre-slavery defense, and Texas forbid blacks from voting, attending public schools, or homesteading on public grounds. Other measures of establishing apprenticeships and vagrancy programs that appropriated the slave in and all in the name of the black codes.
Right.
So they invented a law. Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons why it took 2.5 years for the slaves to know that we was free. Because we didn't know. But they invented this code, the black code, and you couldn't do anything because this is the time of the Reconstruction. And then from the Reconstruction, the reason Reconstruction started falling down is because of the black codes, and the Jim Crow has started to rise. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like it's really deep that how far a person would go to degrade or to keep another race of people down.
Right.
And I know our listeners are probably saying, well, how does this relate to our communities? It relates to our communities because we in some of our communities, as diverse as our communities may be, we still have people that have this type of thinking.
Right.
We have people that don't want to see whites and blacks mingling together.
Right.
Hispanics and blacks mingling together.
Right.
Hispanics and whites mingling together. This is not the policy of the Neighbors Podcast. Mm-mm. This is not what we're about when we're trying to build neighborhoods, because we're trying to build unity throughout all mankind.
So if you notice, throughout this whole conversation, we have not said black power, black power. We're not about that. Yeah. That doesn't mean that we don't have pride in our culture,
which we
and
do.
Who we are.
Right, we do.
As you see that we are two black males who are well versed. We're not opposed to doing our research.
Exactly.
Speaking to you from an educational perspective. But then also we understand, like, hey, we know what it is to live in an urban community.
Exactly.
We also know what it is to live in a suburban community.
Exactly.
So we are not two men that are not versed.
Right.
I put it like that. So, but because of our personal neighborhood, NEIGH, we live in a mixed community,
right?
And we speak to our Caucasian neighbors all the time,
And then we don't look at our neighbors with the, and it's kind of cliche to say this, but we don't look at our neighbors as a color. We look at our neighbors as who this person is.
Yeah,
we know our neighbors on first name basis.
Right.
We speak to them. We talk. We have discussions about things.
Right.
So and this is what a community is. This is what a neighborhood is.
Correct.
This is just regardless of with background we come from.
Right.
We're all on the same page as far as moving forward and to make our communities and our neighborhoods better neighborhoods.
Right.
We're looking forward to the future, and the future is a collective of minds that think alike, and people that are on the same page and want the same thing. So it just like Reese said, you'll never hear too much. We are. It's not that we're not pro-black. How can I help you if I can't help my own people first?
Right.
So once a person sees that, and I think that's the same way for anybody. If you can't help your own, how can you help me?
Right.
So why would I want you to be around me if you can't even help yourself or the people around you?
And see, here in a situation like this whole episode right here is about education.
Correct.
And a lot of things, as we're noticing in the community as a whole, people are not educated.
Right. Right.
So
we're not going to say that they're not educated. What they're doing, the education that they do have, is misguiding and misleading sometimes.
Well. Yes, and I agree with that. With that. So the perspective that I'm coming from as far as just being educated on, sometimes we rely too heavily on our teachers in schools, versus us listening to our grandparents.
Or doing the research ourselves.
Right. So when's the last time, you as our listener, have you sat down and really talked to your parent, your grandparent, your aunts, your uncles that might have that type of wisdom, where they might have gone through seeing the first refrigerator?
Yeah,
what was that experience like? When they might have recalled them sitting with their grandparents, and what was it like going through? Seeing the first car, their first airplane,
the first TV, the first radio, those type of things that we take for granted today.
Right. So that's what I mean by just being educated, because you don't hear about people really taking that time to hear what their family members have experienced, and family members and or friends.
Correct.
And sometimes I think we disregard the senior population in a lot of different ways. And I understand that us talking about Juneteenth is like, y'all talking about some black stuff and, we got to go talk about slavery again. Well, unfortunately, this type of topic, it still affects us today, to be honest.
Sure it does.
So there are some things that can't go away or won't go away because they just haven't been settled.
Correct.
If it was settled, if we didn't, if people of color were treated as a whole person and not still 3/5, these type of situations wouldn't come up as often.
Exactly.
And then the other part of that is that those persons of color who are affected by this, how do we treat ourselves? As Arnold just mentioned, where's our pride? Where's our support for one another?
Exactly. I mean, and that's what makes you a man. That's what makes you a woman. That's what makes you a human being. You have pride. You have self-pride in yourself, self-pride in your culture, self-pride in everything around you. So just because you may associate something first before another thing doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care less for the other thing that you did for the thing that you did first. Think about the things that the Mexican immigrant is going through right now, or the immigrants that are trying to come through Mexico through other countries and what they're getting away from and what they're going through. They're going through their own Juneteenth right now.
Right.
It may not be the physical slavery that we have endured, but they are going through some type of thing with their government, with their country, that they need a better life. So this is on the same line. So everything connects. We just got to know how to connect it.
Right.
We can't just always be closed-minded about things, you know. So that's what makes your neighborhood much better. That's what makes you more acceptable to other people when you speak, you know. And it doesn't hurt to say, if somebody says hi to you, speak back to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to say hello to a person. You know, it doesn't hurt to help a person out. Cut their grass. Pick up their trash. You know, help them move their car if they have to. You know, shovel their snow when it's snowing. So these are things that are instilled in us as human beings. Regardless of what the color of our skins are, we still have the human decency as men and women, as children, as fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, aunties, uncles, cousins, and everything, to still help and want to do good for one another.
Right.
You know, we have to keep doing this, y'all, because if we don't, we're going to lose that fact. And we're going to end up with a world where it's going to be so much hate on one side and not enough good on the other side. And the good is going to end up losing in the long run because there's going to be so much hate.
Right.
And then it's going to be hard for the good to come back from that. You know, so we got to nip a lot of stuff in the bud. And this is what we're trying to do with our platform. This is what we try to do with everything that we do, you know. And one thing about us, we're not going to sugarcoat anything. You know, we're going to tell you like it is. We're going to tell you like it is from an understanding, our understanding standpoint. And we're going to I'm not going to hold anything back from you, you know. So it doesn't make sense. Like I say, if I can't help me and help those around me, how can I help you? And vice versa. If you can't help yourself or help people around you, how can you help me? You know, you got to remember, we have to have our best interests. We have to have each other's best interests at heart when we do things, y'all. And this is what the Neighbors Podcast is about. But celebrate Juneteenth, no matter who you are. I don't care if you're waving a Confederate flag. You can still celebrate it too. You know, because I mean, you have so much pride. You have a lot of people that have pride in the Confederate flag.
You're right.
Even they have so much pride in it and don't even have an understanding why people want the flag down.
Yes.
You know, but they have pride in that. And that is your option. That's up to you. That is what is under the Constitution.
Right.
That is your constitutional right.
Right.
To worship and do whatever you want to do, how you do it, because that is your right, and that is your God-given right. It's also your right that whatever you do, say, and do, it all has consequences. Whether you make the consequences positive or negative, that's up to you. You know? So everybody go out there and celebrate Juneteenth, y'all.
Everybody.
It's a couple of days away.
Because keep in mind, Juneteenth, yes, it seemed like, again, we're beating the African-American drum, but it affects everybody.
It affects everybody.
Because it actually starts with the suffrage movement and things like that. Like, it starts off a whole lot of other things that, again, if you don't know your history, you don't understand where all these other things come from.
Right, because everything is connected.
Right.
Everything is connected, y'all.
Right. So
everything is connected.
Yeah, so, you know, let's not, you know, put down one to uplift another.
Correct.
Because as Arnold just mentioned, everything is connected. We're all connected.
Right.
We're all human, right?
Right.
You know, until E.T. come on down and invade us, right? you know, right now we're the species that is kind of maneuvering and shaking, you know, on this here planet. You know, let's just make let's make it better for each and every one of us. Period.
Yes.
So, you know, I just want y'all to be encouraged.
Excuse me.
I really want y'all to be encouraged. I really, really want y'all to be encouraged. And I want y'all to encourage someone else, you know, and continue to support your neighbor. Not just your neighbors right here on this podcast. Great. And remember
your neighbors in real life.
Like, share, and subscribe us.
Yes.
Plug. Like, share, and subscribe.
And share. Yeah. And also, if you have any comments, anything that you'd like to say about anything that we discuss, I don't care if it's bad or good.
Right.
If it's real negative, keep it to yourself.
Right.
You know, because we're not going to answer that back, you know. But it's your right to leave a comment. But please, we encourage you that you do leave a comment. We encourage that you do, if you have any type of issues or topics that you'd like us to discuss, please feel free. You know, and also don't forget, y'all, Fridays, rep your neighborhood.
Please.
Please.
Pretty please. With a cherry on top. Maybe some whipped cream.
Yeah, a little bit. But just know that
chocolate
we love
sauce.
you. We love you guys.
Yes.
And we're so glad that you guys are a part of our neighborhood. and a part of the Neighbors process.
And we appreciate y'all tuning in every week faithfully.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's greatly appreciated. And remember that you can listen to us